Hey mini enthusiasts, how are you doing? Welcome back. Hope you're having a great day. And we're back on the ERA. This is part 15 of the build. And you rejoin us at this point where Mark's just prepping under the bonnet, the boot and inside to be painted. So in the last update, I think Mark had painted the the floor pan, and now just starting on the rest of it. So the first thing Mark's doing is inserting the fuel tubes, or it's a fuel supply and fuel return tubes, which I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, which pass through the actual cross member in the bulkhead. So obviously they need drilling through the bulkhead and just welding in place. So it's quite a big update today. Another sort of 24-25 minutes. So there's plenty going on, and quite a bit of commentary by Mark as well, so that's handy. Saves me doing bits and bobs and just fills in the detail. So Mark's been very busy on the ERA, and as of on Sprout as well. So I haven't actually been down myself on the ERA for must be a good few weeks actually, but this is all sort of stuff Mark can do, so I sort of get involved when there's some more extensive welding and bodywork to be done, or indeed when the mechanical work starts again. So I think I may have mentioned before, Mark's far better than me at the paintwork side of things. He's got more experience, so yeah, it doesn't need my help at this stage. So that's those tubes passing through the cross member there, and as I say, one is fuel supply, the other one's fuel return. Still not quite sure why they pass them through the cross member like that, because on slightly later cars, the SPI and MPI minis, they just passed them around the cross member. But I think it's probably definitely a slower production process to do it like that. ERAs were, well, they were hand finished, but if you were mass producing a car, you'd probably do it in a different way, which Rover did.
I'm just going to key all this up inside the engine bay. I'm not stripping all the black paint off because it's a decent primer. I have spoke to Heritage and they said it's good enough to spray over, it just needs a key, so I'm going to key it all up. I'll see you in 5.
So this video is pretty much up to date. Hopefully I can get the next video out in a couple of days time, so look out for that. It will probably go out Wednesday actually, and that'll be getting the paint on the inside. And then we're pretty much up to date with the progress. The engine I think is almost ready for collection from Ian Hargreaves at Avonbar, so we need to go down and pick that up at some time. I'm not myself sure of the full spec of the engine yet, but I don't think it's going to be too mad, but I think it will certainly be modified over a standard ERA, but all sort of internal modifications, so nothing external. So it's not going to be running like a front mounted intercooler or any intercooler indeed actually. It will still look like a standard ERA, but with upgraded internals. Just you know, better engine work really to release a bit more power. So I've spoken previously about the merits or the pros and cons of sandblasting versus dipping. One of the things that gets mentioned about sandblasting is obviously all the sand that gets used in the blasting process. Very difficult to get rid of it all. What Mark's found on previous builds is when it's on the jig, you're rotating it around multiple times while you're doing all the repair work on the body. So thankfully most of the sand kind of gets flushed out while you're doing that, but there's still some odd bits. So you'd have seen Mark in the boot there going around with a airline compressed air and just blowing into all the gaps and cavities trying to get everything out. So it's the last of the bracing bars coming out there between the floor and the ceiling. Now Mark's got the long, really boring job of cleaning up that floor. I don't envy him there.
Be back in 5 minutes later.
Well, it does amaze me the amount of work you can get done in 5 minutes, Mark. That's quite impressive, that. I reckon it was probably more like 20 times 5 minutes. But as you can see again, even on the inside they're back to shiny bare metal. I think Mark's got panel wipe in that brake cleaner spray there. I don't think it is brake cleaner. I think it's panel wipe. I might be wrong though. And it's just being sprayed here with just 1K etch primer, acid etch primer, just prior to spraying primer out the spray gun. So the acid etch primer has phosphoric acid in it, and it forms a chemical bond with the metal itself, and as it says, etches to the metal, chemically bonds to the metal. Without that, if you just use normal primer, I'm assuming the paint will peel off quite easily. Never tried it, to be honest. So they're the floor bungs to go in the floor, and Mark's got a little tip for fitting them in a moment. So they've been hand painted, which is quite a bit of attention to detail there.
Right, next job.
So these floor bungs just sort of clip in, and then once they're in you can bend over the tabs if you need to tighten them up a bit. What Mark has found is that you heat them up a little bit and it just softens sort of I don't know what it is, it's kind of rubber around the outside of it which seals it up then on the floor, so obviously you don't get any leaks. And now obviously just brushable seam sealer going on. That's U-Pole, I think it's called Grey Stripe. I've just ordered some for Project Sprout. It's compared to the rest of the brushable seam sealers, it's about twice the price. It's about 20 quid for a tin, might even be a little bit more than that. You can get brushable seam sealers, like 1 litre tins, for about a tenner. But I'm really cautious of whether they're going to work very well. I know Mark's used that U-Pole stuff before and says it's very good, so I thought I'd use the same on Sprout. Problem with stuff like that is you can put some cheap stuff on and it may be perfectly okay, but for the sake of a tenner, if you put it on and then it reacts to the paint, or it swells up, or it cracks in the future, you just really end up kicking yourself. On Sprout, where I seam sealed the bulkhead back after I'd done the repairs, or cleaned it up anyway, I needed to redo the seam sealer. I used Tiger Seal and then I brushed it on. I think Tiger Seal is actually a U-Pole product as well, but just cost wise, Tiger Seal's, I guess, pound for pound, it's quite a bit more expensive. So it's probably alright if you want to do a little bit, but I've got the whole of the boot floor to do on Sprout now, so yeah, I've bought a 1 litre tin, the same as Mark's using there. So this is, it's not really a joke. It's Mark's gone for the factory finish, which is rough, and yeah, when they seam sealed them at the factory, it was never very neat. You look at some modern cars, and the seam sealer on them is really, really neat and tidy. It's probably because it's done by robots. Actually, it's very precise. But on Minis, yeah, it was. Most of it was just done with a brush as far as I know, and it was never the tidiest job, so I'm actually worrying a little bit watching these videos because I know the speed at which Mark works. So the idea is, as soon as the ERA is sprayed, I will get sprout down there, and we'll kind of roll the ERA to one side, get sprout in, spray sprout, hopefully all done in kind of a weekend, and then carry on with the ERA. I'm just sitting here now looking at my garage thinking sprouts out there, back ends in a million pieces. Ooh, I'll pull my finger out and get it finished. Mark's just using Scotch-Brite pads there to key the surface, key the primer, ready for the I don't know what you call it, the real primer, the primer that goes on before paint rather than the acid etch primer. And those Scotch-Brite pads, they just look like Brillo pads that you get in a sink. They're very similar actually, they're probably the same stuff, but they work pretty well, especially when you're working on uneven surfaces and curves and things like that. They're really nice to use. Mark's just removing the sunroof frame now, or removed it anyway, just cleaning it up. And I'm sure Mark will have found, once you remove that sunroof frame, the roof is really weak at the back. You've got to be quite careful not to bend it or damage it when the sunroof frame is out, because it really does become quite thin.
All ready for, I've just got a panel wipe it. So this is my spray mate. It's just basically a dust extraction unit. Long hose there goes out the door, and yeah, should hopefully aid getting the overspray out, and obviously filters the fumes before it goes outside. So yeah, I'm gonna get on.
So the spray mate, you can see there, is a new bit of kit Mark bought for this ERA build, but obviously for future ones as well, where he wants to do some paint work. So when he done kit, and I think you'd have seen when he done a floor on the ERA, dust extraction or fumes, etc., the paint extraction is really important, because you just end up getting loads of overspray. And obviously, you know, just making it a nicer environment to spray in. So Mark did have an extractor before, but it was, well, it was pretty big, but it wasn't sufficient. You know, if you think of the extraction now having a professional body shop, so this is kind of not quite professional body shop standards. It's not quite as good as a booth, but it's far better than the extractor Mark had before. So it'll be interesting to see once he starts doing the colour and the lacquer on the top coats, how well this extractor works. But it's not a cheap piece of kit, but it is kind of quite essential to doing a good job, hopefully. I do know Mark was cursing himself after doing all of this, because he ended up getting a load of dust and fibres in the paint, but as you can see he's not wearing painting overalls, and he kicked himself because he has got them. So I think a little bit like me, like that, enthusiastic, a little bit impatient, just wants to get on with it and get it done, and you end up overlooking bits like that. And yeah, it's always easy with hindsight to think, well, I should have worn my painting overalls, I should have changed first, but you live and you learn. You could already see really that extractor really seems to be doing a good job. It's not like previous videos you'd have seen where you can barely see in the workshop for the fumes or the overspray from the paint gun. So it's looking really good. I can't wait to see what it looks like with all the paint, the colour on it. I'm sure it's going to look absolutely amazing.
Pretty good, really. Slight little run there. Dust. Where did that come from? Stupid dust.
So that is looking really good. Next step will be to get some colour on it. I hope you've enjoyed this week's update. I'll try and get the next one out as soon as possible.